Section 4 of Alchian's Uncertainty, Evolution, and Economic Theory builds off of Section 3's exploration of how chance or luck is one method of achieving success. Can we really just rely on luck? Shouldn't we be worried that our economic path just ends up a random mess to who knows where? Section 4 argues that chance does not imply non-directed, random allocations of resources. In a 1993 paper in the Journal of Political Economy, Goad and Sunder kind of showcase part 3 of Alchian's paper. In an attempt to isolate the contribution of the various components that contribute to market efficiency, Goad and Sunder constructed a computer model with 0 intelligence agents, and they just face a budget constraint. In that market simulation, the random plays of the agents are disciplined by the hard budget constraint, and the efficient solution emerges relatively quickly. The system is intelligent even when the participants within the system are not. They state the implication of this sort of evidence for our purposes quite clearly in the paper. Quote, economic models assume utility maximizing agents to derive market equilibria and their welfare implications. Since such maximization is not always consistent with direct observations of individual behavior, some social scientists doubt the validity of the market level implications of models based on the maximization assumption. Our results suggest that such maximization at the individual level is unnecessary for the extraction of surplus in aggregate. Adam Smith's invisible hand may be more powerful than some may have thought. Goad and Sunder's paper tried to showcase Alchian's earlier work in Section 3 of his uncertainty paper with this computer simulation. This is the type of argument that Alchian is exploring in the uncertainty paper, in particular in Sections 3 and 4. But in Section 4, what he's added is that chance does not imply this non-directed random allocation of resources. And he kind of furthers this by arguing that if we can just copy what works, if we have some ability to kind of adapt as well as be adopted, if we can have some kind of ability to see what's working and then copy that as well, then there is a stronger argument that we'll get a system that heads towards end states that work or are appropriate. So if you look at the Alchian maze game, the active learning environment where students are funneling through the maze, the first stage of the game was just the first time they tried to get through it. How far did they get? And Alchian argues some will get further than others. And that's without kind of assuming greater intelligence by one or the other. It's just that, hey, some paths will adopt correct moves forward. But once we open the game up and we allow repetition through the game, this is kind of Alchian's Section 4 here. We're letting the characters act beyond one attempt. They can start wherever they want and they can copy what has worked for other people. So in the game, there was a student who got out right away in the first row of the game. Well, if you watch, that student actually becomes the one that gets through the maze first. How do they do so? Well, they learned. They lost right away and said, okay, well, don't do this again. Let's see what else is working around the maze, and started to do other attempts. And after you started moving through the maze more and more, and some people started to get through it, and others were witnessing that there was correct movements, that there was a way to get through the maze. And what did they do? They copied the people that were finding their way through. Usually it takes 1 or 2 individuals a little while because they're stubborn and they keep trying to go their own way. But often they will copy what is working, right? And so in that Alchian maze game, we can kind of see this Section 4 of Alchian's paper, that people can, in addition to just being kind of randomness and having some success adopted, we can get some adaptation by the players. They can be copying or imitating what is actually working. So Alchian says on page 215, even if each and every individual acted in a haphazard and non-motivated manner, it is possible that the variety of the actions would be so great that the resulting collective set would contain actions that are best in the sense of perfect foresight. So when we get this randomness, we will get some that do really, really well. And now here, what we're going to say is, what then happens when we imitate the ones that are working? So Alchian continues on in this example, and he says, for example, at a horse race with enough bettors wagering strictly at random, someone will win on all 8 races. Then, if we just copy what works, we get a system that appropriately allocates resources. We see from the randomness the success stories, and then we copy what happens. That's what happened in the active learning environment with the Alchian maze. Students were kind of randomly guessing where they could go, but after seeing some success, you copy the paths that work. With this logic, we can see that chance does not have to imply a non-directed, random allocation of resources. Click to see the next video in this lecture series and move on to part 5 of Alchian's paper.